They say they've been building towards this for 10 plus years. Close enough. But in reality, this is a story that came together almost overnight in the comics. One that had a gauntlet that could control time, space, the mind, the soul, reality, all of it. My God, basically.
Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing.
And tonight was the opening night of Infinity War. So let's just get this out of the way real quick. I'm going to do a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. You have been warned. But let's unpack everything that's been going on. These movies are crazy awesome. And the entire Infinity Stones story has been pretty much laced through, I would say, since the end of Avengers 1, if not from the beginning. And for those of you that don't know what Infinity Stones are, what they are the Infinity Gems from the comic. The ability to control space, time, power, reality, mind, and soul. And of course, each of these come with a little bit of added kick. And when you put them all together, you control everything. You basically become a god. And we have seen these used before in the comics. We've seen individual ones used in individual movies. But this time was different. The gauntlet was on the hand of Thanos. And Thanos with no gems was already powerful enough to fight Thor. And as we go through this, we're going to talk about cosmic entities. I wish some had showed up and some that didn't, and some that are coming soon. And we are going to talk about the ones that are already here, including one that holds the Mind Stone that isn't quite so cosmic in the comics. But okay, Thanos himself. Thanos is everything from a joke to a serious badass. Normally, Drax the Destroyer is out chasing him, and his main nemesis is him and Adam Warlock. But Drax doesn't have that origin, and we don't have Adam Warlock, so instead we're left with, well, we'll get into that with spoiler territory. The Infinity War in the comics was very different. The Infinity Gauntlet was very different, but you could see things pulled from it. And I'd like to point out that Thanos does devastate a bunch of people. And it just makes sense, because he is a powerhouse, again, even without the gems. And we've seen him. We've seen him in the movies. And now, we've seen what happens when you give him the power of a god. I will say, there were some inconsistencies. There was a power level difference in how he handled one thing and when he handled another. But having said that, at no point did I feel it didn't feel cinematic. Nor was there ever a point where it didn't feel like it was the Infinite Gauntlet. On the very, very slight scale, I will say, there was a little bit of disappointment in the theme, but when I get into the spoiler section, I will get there. But okay, for those of you that don't know what I do here, I review stories as they come out. I do Throwback Thursdays on Thursdays, and twice a month now, I'm doing theory videos on how and why we tell stories. If that sounds interesting to you, click subscribe to get all the comic book content you can imagine. Now, all in all, this was the end of a story, not the beginning. And it had its own self-contained story, although one with a slightly dissatisfying beginning and end because of the fact of it being not quite linear in nature. But overall, it was a journey, and one that had an interesting twist or turn or two, and felt cinematic in every way. If you go, you will enjoy it, you will have fun, and most importantly, you will feel like it was worth going to the theater even at the high prices they pay. Great special effects, the jokes seem to fit, and only one or two really should have been cut. The action sequences will blow your mind, and these are characters that you love. All in all, I am very happy with my gold rating. But what about spoiler territory?
So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time.
Okay, holy shit. This is spoiler section, seriously. There are things you don't want to know. Everything we thought that was going to happen happened, and then some. The scene at the beginning was exactly how we would have foreseen it. The Thor and Loki trying to stop Thanos. Great throwback to Avengers 1 when they say, but we've got a Hulk. But at the same time, there were some surprises along the way. how the groups broke up, who went where and why. And even this scene doesn't actually happen in the thing. In fact, Hulk isn't even in the last part of this movie. That is the big WTF thing. They at all those scenes they CG'd Hulk for, Hulk isn't in this movie. For all intents and purposes, Hulk just isn't. They just picked him out of other scenes from other movies and dropped him in. Banner is in it, of course, and gets to save the day, but Hulk is kind of scared, and I don't blame him. Because Thanos already has the power gem. And then he gets the Tesseract, the space gem, and then he gets the reality gem. And I mean, that's just quick successions. Now, in the original Infinity Gauntlet story, it starts with the finger snap, but this ends with the finger snap. And there are moments where I realized that there is no way this was going to be a self-contained story. In fact, I kept sitting there and saying, if they weren't doing the next one as a continuation, as a part 2, then there's no way he could even get the Holo Gauntlet. Well, silly me, because they lied to us. The next one is part 2. Because this movie ends with half of the universe dying. And unlike in the comic, it's not just supporting cast members. It's people we know have movies coming out. Black Panther and Spider-Man are both gone. And I mean, that kind of makes this a not real cliffhanger. Back when I was reviewing Arrow, I made fun of the fact that they had a cliffhanger where everybody died. And of course, not everybody died. If you do one person dying, that's one thing, but everyone is just ridiculous. And because of the fact that we have the movie schedules, this cliffhanger isn't quite as cliffhangery as it could be. But there's part of me that says that there's a good chance that the only people coming back are the people that died from the snap. And plenty of people bit it before that. I mean, in the opening sequence, we lose Loki and Heimdall. I mean, that is insane. And there were multiple times during this movie that I was actually crying. Let me just, off the top of my head, say the scene where Natasha and Banner get back together for the first time. The scene where Spider-Man dies. The scene where, why can't I think here? Actually, almost every scene with Wanda and Vision. Just all of it. And the battle sequences were pretty amazing, but all the personal heart-touching moments were way more. I'm trying to think of what would be the biggest flaw. And they did such a good job of jumping back and forth from character to character and giving us so much depth into these characters we loved that I almost want to forgive any flaw. But I think that it was with this Obsidian Order. I think that the fact remains that they didn't really get that much oomph. And because of that, Thanos really did get to steal much of the show. But at the same time, it also still felt like Iron Man 4. Iron Man gets to be the one to survive, and in the end, when Doctor Strange gives up the gem, well, let's talk about that for a second. Doctor Strange goes into the future. He looks at a bunch of possible futures, a really huge number. And in all but one of them, Thanos wins. So, what does he do? He gives up the Time Stone. And you'd think this is pretty stupid. I mean, all you have to do is think for but a second and say, no, use the Time Stone. Do something. But I'm thinking that his gambit, his last gasp at a chance, was realizing that the only way to beat Thanos is the same way they did in the comics. By not beating Thanos. Thanos beats himself. Now, the big takeaway action sequence will, of course, be the Wakanda one. And I will say that Wakanda gets to be the big damn hero here. But everyone gets a moment to shine, except for Hawkeye and Ant-Man, who do not show up for this movie. They are sure not appearing in this film. However, there is someone who didn't appear, but I want to talk about. And that's in the end credit sequence. So, I don't know, do I need to do a spoiler in the middle of the spoiler section? But the end credit sequence is after the snap, half the universe is dying, and Nick Fury tells Hill to call in the big guns, and then she vanishes, and then he starts to vanish. So he pushes a button on some sort of device, and as it falls to the ground, it's sending, 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 and then has the Captain Marvel symbol in it. Ta-da! He's calling Captain Marvel, which is, of course, the next movie is Ant-Man and Wasp, which must take place before all of this, and then Captain Marvel that takes place in the 90s, and then we're back for Avengers 4, which will be Infinity War Part 2. I am curious to see what they do with these characters, and again, the Black Order all end up dying, and there's part of me that says that that's a shame. I mean, in the comics, they don't exactly have huge parts to play, but each one of them have a distinct personality that didn't really come out so much in the movie. Yeah, they got to do cool things. Yeah, they got to be bad guys for the heroes to fight. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It just feels like if they were just nameless, more slightly badass guys that were on Thanos' side. At the end of the day, they could have just been named Shatari for all intents and purposes. But let's talk about who's left. So, we have Iron Man and Nebula in space. On Earth, we have Captain America, Black Widow, Rhodes, the chief of the ape people, and the Royal Guards General of Wakanda. Other than that, I don't know if anyone. Oh, I think Banner survived too. So, with all of this, what am I left for an opinion? Well, it was really awesome, and everyone's going to love it. And people are going to be debating what comes next for a while. In fact, with a plot like this, there is almost nowhere to go without debate. If I had to put a bad to my good, the bad, and the ugly that I normally do, it would be the lack of Adam Warlock. I really think the story overall is hurt by it, and I think that they should have planned that a little better. I also have to wonder who it is that will play his role. Perhaps Vision, resurrected because Shuri did more likely than not finish that last connection. Having said that, though, the fact that Drax isn't the Drax that we know from the comics kind of burns a little, too. But I loved this. And it isn't replacing Black Panther or Captain America Winter Soldier or even the first Superman movie for best comic book movies. But it definitely is a fun one, and one that I think we could do a case study on for how to end a build-up. I would have done a few things different myself. And there was a big cameo that even here in the spoiler part, I'm not going to tell you who it is, because it's from an early movie. And like I said, the after credit sequence was all about Captain Marvel. But that's the movie I'm most looking forward to next, and then to see what role she plays in the next Avenger film. So for now, tell me what you were thinking. What jokes did you laugh at? What character deaths hit you the hardest? And maybe most importantly, what would you have done differently? Because there's a lot to explore in this. But for now, like and share this video, and of course, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and join our little community. Because what I'm doing here is trying to put together a whole league, a whole Avengers of people who are interested in figuring out how to get to the heart of the stories we tell. I hope you have a good night, and true believers, I hope you stay tuned, because the MCU is far from over.